Welcome back to Vital Signs. I am here with JP Newman, and we are talking about all things health and especially financial health and well-being. Before the break, we talked about rewriting our stories about money and how to de-stress about our financial situation and to really take control over where we are now and create that life that we want by taking that first action step. And now I want to really dive in a little bit deeper into integrating health with wealth, aligning vision and purpose with our financial goals and our life flow, and this concept of four-dimensional wealth that you are really well versed in.
Yeah. Well, thank you. You think about it, a lot of people, they get financial advice from Instagram or their financial planner, and it's a very one-dimensional way to look at money. Just save until you die, do all these different things, but it really doesn't take into account, that's all the how. That's how to do things, but none of it's the why. Why are you doing things? What is the purpose of this money doing for you? So four-dimensional wealth is a framework, getting out of the one dimension of just money into the four dimensions of your purpose, your relationships, your time wealth, how you spending your time, and your health. And it's wrapping it all together so that you ultimately realize that your money is actually the foundation. It's like your roots that supports these other things. They're not separate from each other, they're actually together. And when your money is in order with a plan, no matter if you're big or small, when your money is in order and you're out of fear and all the things we talked about, you've got your money story fixed and you're in flow at whatever level you have. It doesn't have to be millions of dollars, but when you're finally in flow and you realize that it's the foundation, it changes your mindset because now you know this money is gratitude. It's gratitude because it's supporting your tree of all these other segments of your life that are really the core of your life, your family, your community, your relationships, your health. And it's not just like, it's just such a different way to look at it. And most financial advice, they're screaming at you, telling you one thing that I don't believe is true in creating what I would call a wealthy person who understands what money is and what money isn't.
I love that you sort of clarified that, and I kind of want to go a little bit into this conversation because a lot of times we have that traditional model where we are told just save, just accumulate, but let's be real, folks, we can't take it with us. I'm just going to be frank. We can't take it with us. And if all we've done is saved and accumulated and never shared with other people, never utilized that in a way that fulfills us as human beings, then we're kind of missing the point because it's simply the method that demonstrates the exchange of our energy. So I want to dive into how do we shift from that mindset, because I also get this question a lot, and that's, I've got this, I've set this up, and now I'm looking to retire, but I'm so scared to withdraw from that which I have built. So
Right.
How does that reverse happen? We talked about easing the flow so that we could start the flow and generate. Now let's go to the other side of the life cycle where, hey, I've worked, I've actually got a little bit of nest egg, it's time for me to retire, or I'm forced to retire, and I have to start withdrawing. How do I overcome that fear?
It's really simple because I've dealt with this question hundreds of times from my clients. And the simple thing is have a plan. I know it sounds really simple, but what people don't realize is they've probably done better than they think. I found time and time again, people are like, I don't think I've got enough money to retire. And I'm like, well, how do you know? How much is it going to cost? What is your plan? How much is it going to cost to live the life that you want to live? Like what's paid for, what's not? I can tell you about 80% of the time, people do have enough money. They just haven't gotten their things in order. So I would say really not only know what your burn rate is today, but if you're going to retire, look at your investments and have a reinvestment rate. How much you're earning off of your investments and your income. And that gives you a pretty good idea of a dollar amount. And then also you gotta look at your other things. For instance, have you paid down your house? Do you have some equity in your house or in your car? Do you hold stocks? Like look at your whole picture. And you may find, for instance, like let's say you have $100,000 worth of investments, or $100,000 would be a lot of money coming in. I just find there's more money, for instance, on this $100,000 example, which I know is a lot of money for a lot of people. Well, that kind of tells you what you can afford to spend. For a lot of people, I find that like $60,000 or $70,000 a year coming in, and then they still have their house, and they've got like $500,000 of equity on their house. So it's okay. It's like, if you think about it, you've got 30 years, you've got like enough money here to pay the majority of your life, and if you ever get in trouble, you've got your house or your equity you can take out slowly. And if you actually put a plan together, you may find that you're in better shape than you think. Not knowing is what causes the sleepless nights.
It really does, and it's so funny to me because a lot of times I see it in exit when you've built a company, you've got the cash flow, and then you have this big exit, and it's a windfall a lot of times when you exit a business. Like that is the biggest check you will ever receive in your entire life, the largest sum of money for most people. And they freak out and they're like, well, what do I do now? I'm no longer generating that money. And so it really is it's the other side of that same spectrum that we start out with when we've got nothing. Like It's kind of like we have to retell our story and redefine what that is.
It's funny you say that because I think the psychology of that is no matter where you're at in life, when you have those big exits or these lottery winners who can't hold on to their money, because I think naturally, like you think about human beings, we always want to be growing and expanding. Because what's the opposite of growth and expansion?
Death.
Death. So if financially, think of it the same way. If you don't have a plan, you just think that your money's sinking, and you don't have an investment plan that creates a certain amount of cash flow for you, and you know you can rely on reliable cash flow through time, you're kind of telling your body you're dying. You're actually creating the same fear inside, which is why cash flow and an investment plan that builds your cash flow over time is such a crucial part to your plan. And I'd ultimately say it's actually winning. It's not a number. It's actually knowing that you have enough cash flow to support your life with the other assets that you have is how you win the game.
You know, I love that. And you talk a lot about winning along the way.
Yeah.
You talk about what are those winning things along the way. And you and I, we talked in the break a little bit about the purpose and knowing why we draw breath and having that along the way, along your journey. Can you kind of put that into perspective for everybody watching? Like, how do we figure out what that is? Because a lot of people don't even know the why that makes you cry that you speak about.
Yeah, you know, I think it took me about 10 or 15 years of kind of figuring it out. And I think for a lot of people, you're just pushing and pushing forward. And it actually took me, quite frankly, a little bit of a breakdown to get to my why. Because I realized once I started making money, I thought I'd be happy. And I wasn't.
Oh, that happens a lot.
I had a lot of anxiety. And it really got me looking deeper and deeper. What is it that I care about? And for me, it was being a good father. It was being a great husband. It was treating my employees well. And I was having a business with purpose. So I do commercial real estate, which isn't necessarily by default a purpose-driven business. So I literally had to figure out, I said, how can I be creative and take what I'm doing, which is just making a living, and how do I bring creativity and infuse something that's meaningful to me? And the answer took some time, but the answer was, besides just taking care of my investors and serving them, how am I serving the residents in my community? Am I being accretive to them? In other words, am I helping them, or am I extracting from them just to help my investors? A lot of people, they're so worried about their investors, or they're so worried about taking care of their boss, or whatever it is, that maybe you're not looking at the whole picture. So for me, my beginning of my purpose was realizing I wanted to have respect, and it ultimately became love for the communities that I'm involved in, whether it's for my business, which is apartments, and making sure we're taking really good care of those people. But now it's gone all over the place. It's in the charity that I do. It's in my local communities in Austin. It's in my friendships. I hold gatherings. In fact, after I leave you today, I'm hosting about 22 people for dinner tonight. And that's all part of my mission of communities. And where that comes from for me is ultimately I love people. And the way I like to express love is introducing great people to great people and watching those relationships take off.
Because let's be frank, like relationship capital is a key part of being human. We are social creatures, folks. We are not meant or designed to operate in isolation in a vacuum. And so I really love that you've integrated health. Health is kind of a foundational thing, and your financial goals with why. What am I doing, and how can I meet my goals while also serving what I'm put here on earth to do?
And one more piece of that is when you do that and you actually recognize why you're here and what you're doing, it brings you so much joy. And it does exactly, everything starts to flow. Like, I know this dinner tonight is not just a dinner, it's part of my intention. And it's gonna cost me a certain amount of money to host these people for dinner, but it's all in alignment. I've got my budget lined up. I know I can afford it. It hits community, it hits relationships, it hits my purpose. And I know for all that, guess what that does? It makes me sleep better at night, which creates better health ultimately. Because you're connected. It's all firing.
And you know, that connection that connection, that relationship piece is so incredibly important as well. Like, you had a plan. I'm going to wrap this up in a bow. You had a plan.
Yeah.
You created something that you feel good about, and you're creating value for your residents and your communities. You're creating community both for them, your own community. You're developing that relationship capital, which spills over into everything we do. You can sleep at night, which brings you better health, and it just comes full circle. And you work now with others sharing this message. So how can people reach out to you? I know you've got a podcast. I know you've got some educational things coming out to help people who maybe are stuck in that day-to-day and at paycheck to paycheck to climb out of that and to actually live their life of abundance.
Sure. I think the greatest thing is to start with my podcast, which is Investing on Purpose, and it's on all the major Apple, I'm on YouTube, I'm on Spotify. Find me at Investing on Purpose. And I think it's a great place to start. And then from there, there's actually more information. There's a landing page. What you're going to find out is there's actually 7 steps to creating this wealth. We went through 2 of them today, which was knowing how much you spend and writing a vision of what you want. But there's actually another 5 steps. And if you go forward on my podcast and through my material, you'll find the 7 steps. I think it's a great place to start.
Fantastic. I love what you're doing in the world. I love how you're bringing this out. And folks, if you learn nothing else from JP, it's to rewrite your money story. Both he and I had a money story that was very limiting in belief, and I wouldn't be here today able to share this with you if I hadn't rewritten my money story, and neither would he. So take his advice, check out his podcast. We do have another guest coming after the break, and we're going to dive deep and dirty into all things brain regeneration and brain health. How can we become peak human performing individuals in that realm? We'll be right back after these messages.